Okay, Kelly. So I started some shit on LinkedIn talking about PIPs, which we know as the performance improvement plan. I told employees that they should be thinking about it as a paid interview period. The reason why I said that is because as I've experienced PIPs, they are typically designed as a CYA for the company. And most people do not survive PIPs. In fact, like some of the data that I've seen is as high as 95% of employees do not survive a PIP. And so that was one piece. The second piece and point that I made is that employees that survive a PIP end up having this scarlet letter that is then attached to them through the remainder of their tenure, such that 12 months later, they've survived the PIP, they're doing better, their manager puts them up for promotion, the HRBP says, well, hold on, this person was just on a PIP 12 months ago, we can't promote them now. Or the manager goes to bat for them on a salary increase, and the HRBP says, whoa, hold on. Like, we can't be sending these mixed messages of 12 months ago they were on a PIP, and now we want to really increase their salary. So what's your take on PIPs?
Yeah, I saw that. There was a lot of action around that. A lot of energy. I mean, I'll throw back a question for you because I was reading through some of the comments. There was a lot. I think there was like over 30 or 40. What rebuttal to your post did you find any merit in as you were reading
I think there's
through
actually quite a bit of merit on a case-by-case basis. On different companies think about PIPs differently depending on the company. But the point that I was trying to make was if a friend came to me, I didn't know the company, I didn't know the manager, I didn't know the HR team. What generalized advice would I give them? That was the essence of my post. So I do believe that some companies run these in a very genuine way, like they want people to survive. I think some people, David Hanrahan, who's a friend of the show, made a great point, which was that at his company, they have more than a 50% survival rate. And when people a year from surviving the PIP end up going up for promotion, the discussion is, wow, they really turned it around. This is awesome. We want more people like this.
Right.
But I think that is the small minority as opposed to the majority.
Yep. I love that answer. I also agree that and I was hoping you'd say that, it's through context. You know what I mean? And, I was taking some notes on this before, I'm a big fan of analogies, and I feel like everyone's focused on the fucking PIP. Like the conversation actually, if you peel back the onion, isn't about the PIP. The PIP is like a car. It depends on who's driving it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's something that I've learned in my career is that like a PIP is not just a thing that everyone uses the same way. Everyone thinks about the same way. Even in the same fucking company, a PIP can be driven differently. So I think we should start talking about the people that have their hands on the wheel or the form, so to speak, not the mechanism itself, because that's what really makes or breaks these things. To your point, how David uses them in this company, very genuine. I've seen and been a part of companies that do not use it genuinely. And so I actually don't care if you're going to use PIPs or not, but if you are, make sure that it is genuine. Because we've talked about this a lot, and I think this could be controversial. In a lot of companies, these things are in place as a forcing function to put some sort of hope of consistency or training wheels around an exercise that people aren't generally good at doing. So if I follow that red bouncing ball, personally, I don't like them. If I was a manager, I've never really used them. If I have an employee, to your point, I don't want it, because how my psyche works is you put me on that thing, I've already lost. Do you know what I mean? And so, and I often see them as like the last backstop. Like nothing great was done before that. Documented feedback, one-on-ones. And then all of a sudden they want to go from 0 to 100, but it's a PIP, so it's okay. That is the problem I have with people misusing this vehicle. And I've like not yelled at, but I've made fun of a lot of managers in my time. I'm like, where's everything else? We can't just go from 0 to a PIP. Like where are the email documentation? Where's all that stuff that in my mind actually is the PIP?
I totally agree. I feel like the PIP was designed by like the worst of employment legal and HR as a CYA because the manager hadn't documented any performance feedback and shows up to a conversation with their HRBP and says, I want to fire this employee. And the HRBP says, where's the feedback? And the manager goes, what feedback? And the HRBP says, oh my God, you again. Let's just do a PIP to like make sure we check our box.
Yeah.
And do this at least in a way that is like somewhat humane.
Right. There should be so much work done throughout. And I'm like, forget about the fucking PIP. This stuff is the PIP. And there is a misconception that you can't, exit someone via performance if you don't have a PIP. That is completely false. And in fact, I've seen, better outcomes. Either someone improves and they're motivated and they stay, or they exit and it's very cordial. And they often agree with the decision. But once you introduce that fucking acronym and that form, I swear to God, it inserts a level of us versus them, a level of formality where a lot of employees, their hackles go up immediately. At least that's my opinion. And if you handle things well before that, like throughout, you shouldn't actually need the PIP.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
Your workforce is both your organization's greatest strength and largest single cost. With Planful, it's easy to unlock the secrets of successful workforce planning so you and your HR team can make the right business decisions. Imagine using data-driven insights to develop accurate forecasts, close hiring gaps, and adjust talent acquisition plans collaboratively based on costs today and into the future. Planful lets you collaborate with colleagues in finance to understand the value your employees bring to the table. And the best part, you can get started with Planful in just weeks with minimal help from IT. Plus, with Planful, you get an endless runway. Planful grows with you, no matter how fast or large your team scales. Ready to transform your HR strategy? Join over 1,500 organizations worldwide who trust Planful as their go-to workforce planning software at planful.com/heretics.
Here's a crazy stat. Between hybrid and frontline employees, about 80% don't typically work in an office. So it's no surprise that digitally engaging employees is the number one concern for CEOs as companies go hybrid. But as hybrid is quickly becoming the norm, it's easy for workplaces to start feeling a little less human. Yet delighting a digital workforce is possible, and it can even be, dare we say, fun. That's where Workvivo, Zoom's employee experience platform, comes in. If you've ever recoiled at the thought of a static intranet that looks like something you built in 1995 using MS Paint, have no fear. Workvivo is a dynamic, intuitive, accessible, and mobile-first tool. People actually like using it, which is why companies like Ryanair, Dollar General, Virgin, and more have rolled it out to hundreds of thousands of employees. Workvivo's activity feeds, spaces, shoutouts, and live streams, among other features, help elevate the employee experience like never before. The result? Dramatically better retention, productivity, and most importantly, connectedness. A greater sense of the belonging we all crave at work, whether we sit at a desk or drive a truck. Make Workvivo the digital heart of your organization and achieve limitless human connection. Head to workvivo.com to book a demo and make sure you tell them that Nolan and Kelli from HR Heretics sent you.
Now, on the other side, I do agree with CYA. It is important. This isn't just a laissez-faire. Like, you have to do it correctly. You have to think about employment law and steps and chronology, but it shouldn't necessarily require a PIP.
Well, I think even beyond employment law, the majority of employees in the United States are at will. And I think it's actually like much more important than employment law. It's just like, how do we treat each other as humans? Mm-hmm. And if you're not documenting, first of all, I don't even think most managers are delivering constructive feedback, not to mention then like following up and documenting that feedback in writing. Like, people digest things differently. HR is typically not in the room through these conversations. And so that is, I think, just like, we need to be more human. I don't think the way to be more human is to institute a PIP. Right. And that's kind of my point. Another aspect of the conversation that I want to get your take on was one of my friends, Rachel, made a comment around her preferred tactic, and I've heard this from a couple of other friends as well, we could call it the pip or package. And so this is where you show up to a conversation with an employee and you give them 2 doors. Door number 1 is the PIP, typically 30 days to improve your performance. There's very specific measures that you have to hit, or we fire you and you don't get severance. Or door number 2, you leave today and we give you the severance, which is typically what the duration of the PIP would have been.
Yes.
What's your take on PIP or package?
Yep. And a synonym for that is called the fork approach. I've learned over the past 5 years or so. A fork, left or right, choose. I actually don't see anything wrong with it. I think it is a very realistic and adult-like conversation to have. And again, the PIP isn't necessarily needed in that chat. Let's just remove the PIP and talk about what it's supposed to do. Nolan, you're a great person. This isn't personal. It's been a rough 3-5 months. You probably nod. Yeah, it's been a little rough. I think we have to make a change. This isn't sustainable. We got to go one way or the other. We got to go up, or we got to figure out what the next right thing is for you, either internally or externally to the company. What would you do if we were me? How are you feeling? This is a partnership. And when people go into it like that, you can be amazed at how easy and, again, surprisingly collaborative these conversations are, because you'll say one of 2 things. You'll say, I really want to be here. I know it hasn't been great. There's some personal stuff. There's some stuff going on, but I really want to try and I want to be here. Great. Well, we got to kind of turn up the gas over the next 30, 40, 60 days. Doesn't have to be a PIP, but it's gas. Or you're I think you're right. I was nervous to have this chat. I didn't want to get fired, but I think it'd be great if we did a 60-day notice or 1 month notice and 1 month garden leave so I can look elsewhere. I think I'd be happier. That's usually how it goes with reasonable people. And now there are unreasonable people, but a PIP's not going to make someone reasonable, so it doesn't matter anyway.
I actually I hadn't considered it that way, which is just don't do the PIP. Just say there's 2 doors, and door number 1 isn't the PIP. It's just these are the 3 things that you must hit. And we codify that in writing, and we just leave this antiquated language at the door that is honestly only meant to make employment legal happy. I hate the link, because I feel like the moment you introduce the PIP, it does make everyone feel defensive.
I'm telling you, it changes the whole vibe. It's like that person that comes to the party and you're like, ooh, what just happened?
Yeah.
the whole energy shifts. And I've always worked this way. Even when it was a tough situation, you look someone in the eye and you talk to them like a human to a human, and you talk in reasonable terms. You don't use a lot of jargon. And people, when they trust that, they'll want to figure it out. No one likes to fight. I mean, unreasonable people do, but that will never change anyway.
What's your take on if someone survives that? How do you feel like they're viewed moving forward in the majority of companies?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I have a hypothesis here that I think it actually is to use your analogy, I think it's a more bold scarlet letter on bigger companies, to be honest, the FANG type companies.
Exactly.
Young, early stage, they don't care. They move too fast. People change too much. There's a lot of blood transfusion in earlier stage companies. But these big companies, you get 100,000 people in a company and you don't know people anymore. So all you do is look in the system at this stranger and you're like, oh, shit. 18 months ago, they had a 2 rating and they were on a PIP. And you lose a lot of context in that. So I actually think it's worse at the larger companies, and they're more aching to use these things for reasons we all know.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I would just encourage, if you are an employee in this situation and you've either been given a PIP or you've been given the PIP or package option or something along the like, when you're making the decision of how hard to fight, ask the company, like, hey, how do we say I survive this? Like, let's live in a world to where like I survive this and I'm kicking ass again and I become a top performer. Will this be held against me? And every company is going to say, no. But you can tell by the genuineness behind the answer. And then you can also ask other colleagues who have been through similar situations, because usually there's like a little bit of a soundbite going on if someone has done this before and now has like this anchor associated with their career.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely get other opinions. And, you know, the like pro tip of the whole thing is getting close with your HRBP is a great thing. I mean, they're humans, they want to help. And a lot of employees, they never want to talk to them. It's like, they're actually could be your best ally and Sherpa, like through a process like this. And also, if you sniff out stuff, a lot of employees will hide. They'll go under a rock. They won't lean in, and then they'll get slapped with a pip. So if you sense anything, like lean in early and try and resolve or figure out things before the pip comes. That's my advice.
Yeah. And if you're an employee, ask the HRBP, hey, if you were me, how would you think about this?
Totally.
Because you're going to get some real truth. If you do have a good relationship and you can break it down to that level. And
they'll help you navigate for sure. There have been times where I've been asked and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I think you should cut bait. And
it's just, again, if you have that relationship with somebody, they're going to be a human with you. Then that's where you can find out the real truth of how your company operates.
Right. Totally.
All right. Kelli, thanks for the time. Everybody, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your homies. It helps out the pod. And then let us know if you have any feedback. Thank you.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.